What's good, YouTube, man? It's your boy Center Studios, man. We are here with another video, man. Hope y'all staying safe. Hope y'all staying blessed. Today we finna be doing 1984 San Ysidro McDonald's shooting. Man, so this how I'm starting my day off, bro. Wait, like, why do people tend to go for places where there's no security, bro? A lot of places need security though, security guards type shit. Cause you could walk into niggas could walk into a store and then they just start blicking at shit. So ever since the Buffalo mass shooting, I say to myself yeah, you gotta have security guards outside of the stores nowadays. Yeah. Hope y'all subscribe, man. Even share the video with your homie or whoever, man. And let's get right into it, bro.
James Oliver Huberty was born in Canton, Ohio on October 11, 1942, the second of two children born to Earl Vincent, a quality inspector, and Eichel Evelone Huberty, a homemaker. Both parents were devoutly religious, and the family were regular attendees at local United Methodist churches. When Huberty was 3 years old, he contracted polio. To minimize the debility of this ailment, he was required to wear steel and leather braces upon both legs. Although Huberty made a progressive recovery from this ailment, he would be afflicted with a mild limp for the remainder of his life. In 1950, Earl Huberty purchased a 155-acre farm in Mount Eaton. Eichel refused to live in a rural location and refused to even view the property. Shortly thereafter, Eichel abandoned her family to perform sidewalk preaching as a Pentecostal missionary in Tucson, Arizona. Huberty found his mother's abandonment emotionally devastating. His father would later recollect finding his son slumped against the family chicken coop, sobbing. Huberty was a sullen child with few friends, whose primary interest was target practice. A family acquaintance would later describe him as a queer little boy who practiced incessantly with a target pistol. By his teens, Huberty was something of an amateur gunsmith. Due to his limp, his family's extreme religious beliefs, and his reluctance to socialize with his peers, Huberty was frequently targeted by bullies at Waynedale High School. An average scholar, he graduated 51st out of a class of 77 students in 1960. In 1962, Huberty enrolled at Malone College, where he initially studied sociology, before opting to study at the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science. He graduated with honors from this institute in 1964, being issued with a funeral director's license, and the following year, an embalmer's license. In early 1965, Huberty married Etna Markland, whom he had met while attending Malone College. Shortly after his marriage, Huberty obtained employment at a funeral home in Canton. Although proficient at embalming, Huberty's introverted personality made him ill-suited to dealing with members of the public, causing minor conflicts with his superiors. Nonetheless, Huberty worked in this profession for 2 years before opting to become a welder for a firm in Louisville. He worked for this firm for 2 years before securing a better-paid position at Babcock and Wilcox in June 1969. Although reclusive and taciturn, Huberty's employers considered him a reliable worker. He willingly took overtime, earned promotions, and by the mid-1970s, regularly earned between $25,000 and $30,000 per year. $138,000, $166,000, adjusted for 2023 inflation. Shortly after Huberty was hired by this firm, he and his wife moved into a 3-story home in an affluent section of Massillon, Ohio. In the winter of 1971, this home was destroyed in a fire. Shortly thereafter, James and Etna bought another house on the same street. They later built a 6-unit apartment building on the grounds of their first home, which they managed. Daughters Zelia and Cassandra were born in 1972 and 1974, respectively. Huberty had a history of domestic violence, frequently slapping or punching his daughters, holding knives to their throats, beating his wife,
The fuck?
On one occasion, Etna filed a report with the Canton Department of Children and Family Services, stating that her husband had messed up her jaw, although she later insisted on the majority of occasions he had assaulted her. He struck her only once.
This nigga
Beginning in
beating niggas.
1976, Etna repeatedly attempted to persuade her husband to seek counseling to alleviate his sources of stress, although he refused to seek any form of therapy. In personal efforts to pacify her husband's temper, anxiety, and general paranoia, and to both influence and control his behavior, Etna took great efforts to minimize any possibility of agitating her husband. She also gradually developed a mechanism whereby she claimed to be able to read his future by reading playing or tarot cards. Huberty believed her. Etna's readings would produce a temporary calming effect, and Huberty would typically follow the recommendations his wife made in these readings. To his neighbors and co-workers, Huberty was perceived as a sullen, ill-tempered, and somewhat paranoid individual, obsessed with firearms, and who harbored a mental tally of every setback, insult, or general source of frustration, real or perceived, against himself or his family within his home.
This man had issues.
Huberty would retaliate in response to any real or perceived injustice in an effort to settle what he termed my debts, and conflicts with his neighbors would once lead to his detainment on charges of disorderly conduct. On one occasion, he is known to have informed the father of 2 girls whom he had encouraged his daughters to fight in response to a conflict between the children. I believe in paying my debts, both good and bad. A conspiracy theorist and self-proclaimed survivalist, Huberty believed an escalation of the Cold War was inevitable, and that President Jimmy Carter, and later Ronald Reagan and the United States government were conspiring against him. Convinced of an imminent increase in Soviet aggression, Huberty believed that a breakdown of society was fast approaching, perhaps through economic collapse or nuclear war. He committed himself to prepare to survive this perceived collapse, and provisioned his house with ample reserve supplies of non-perishable food and numerous guns, some purchased from co-workers, that he intended to use to defend his home during what he believed was the coming apocalypse. According
The
to one
apocalypse?
family acquaintance named Jim Islanes,
What?
Huberty's home was bedecked with loaded firearms to such a degree that wherever Huberty was sitting or standing within his home, he could just reach over and get a gun. Each firearm was loaded with the safety catch.
Damn, so that's all he uses bread on is just guns all the fucking time? Like, he ain't using on no... Well, like, he ain't using on, like, no groceries or nothing, bro. Straight guns all day. Like, he had, like, on everywhere this man went, there was a gun. On the wall, under his damn pillow, under his mattress, in the bathroom. Everywhere there was a fucking gun, bro.
In November 1982, Huberty was laid off from his welding job at Babcock and Wilcox, causing him to become despondent over his dire financial situation and general inability to provide for his family. One co-worker would later recollect that, upon being notified of the impending closure of this engineering firm, Huberty had made a comment indicating that if he was unable to provide for his family, he intended to commit suicide and take everyone with him.
This
According to
man.
Etna, shortly after her husband became unemployed, Huberty began hearing voices. In early 1983, he placed a loaded pistol against his temple, threatening to commit suicide. Etna successfully dissuaded her husband from shooting himself, although he later remarked to her, "You should have let me shoot myself." Unable to find lasting employment in Ohio, James and Etna Huberty sold their 6-unit apartment building for $115,000 in the spring of 1983. Shortly thereafter, Huberty obtained alternate welding employment with Union Metal Manufacturing Company. This employment lasted 5 weeks before the closure of the plant. Weeks after he became unemployed, Huberty and one of his daughters were injured in a traffic accident. In the weeks following this accident, Huberty noted an aggravation in neck pains he had endured since childhood. He also noted an occasional increasing nerve tremor in his hands and arms. In the summer of 1983, the Hubertys applied for residency in Mexico, believing the money obtained from the sale of their apartment building would financially sustain the family longer in Mexico than in America. Having also sold their home for just $12,000 in cash in September, Huberty informed family acquaintances of his intentions to relocate his family to Tijuana in search of employment opportunities, confidently stating, "We're going to show them who's boss." In San Ysidro, the Hubertys rented an apartment.
This nigga got a sniper, bro.
Huberty sought employment. The fact his family were the only Anglo-Americans within this apartment complex irritated Huberty. who was notably rude to his neighbors. Shortly thereafter, Huberty applied to a newspaper advertisement offering security guard training in a federally funded program. He completed this course on April 12th and soon obtained employment with a security firm in Chula Vista, assigned with guarding a condominium complex. The money earned enabled the family to have their furniture shipped from Ohio, and the family relocated to a two-bedroom apartment on Averill Road the same month. The monthly rent for this apartment was $450. On July 10th, Huberty was summarily dismissed from this job. His employers informed Huberty the reasons for his dismissal were his poor work performance and a noted general physical instability.
So
On
like,
July 15th,
okay.
1984, only 5 days after being dismissed from this job, James Huberty commented to his wife Etna that he suspected he had a mental health problem. 2 days later, on the morning of July 17th, he called a San Diego mental health clinic, requesting an appointment. Leaving his contact details with the receptionist, Huberty was assured the clinic would return his call within hours. According to his wife, he sat quietly beside the telephone for several hours, awaiting the return call, before abruptly walking out of the family home and riding to an unknown destination on his motorcycle. Unbeknownst to Huberty, the receptionist had misspelled his name as Schuberty. His polite demeanor conveyed no sense of urgency to the operator, and he had elaborated in the phone call that he had never been hospitalized for mental health issues. Therefore, the call had been logged as a non-crisis inquiry to be handled within 48 hours. Approximately 1 hour later, Huberty returned home in a contented mood. After eating dinner, Huberty, his wife, and their 2 daughters, aged 12 and 10, cycled to a nearby park. Later that evening, he and Etna watched a film together on their television. The following morning, Wednesday, July 18th, Huberty, his wife, and children visited the San Diego Zoo. In the course of their walk through the zoo, Huberty told his wife of his belief that his life was effectively over. Referring to the mental health clinic's failure to return his phone call the previous day, he said, "Well, society had their chance." After eating lunch at a McDonald's restaurant in the Claremont neighborhood of San Diego, the Huberty family returned home. Shortly thereafter, Huberty walked into his bedroom wearing a maroon t-shirt and green camouflage slacks as his wife lay relaxing upon their bed. He leaned toward Etna and said, "I want to kiss you goodbye." Etna kissed her husband, then asked him where he was going, stating her intention to soon prepare the family dinner. Huberty calmly replied he was going hunting for humans.
The fuck?
Holding a gun across his shoulder and carrying a box of
Yo.
ammunition. Hunting for humans.
Hunting humans is crazy, bro.
Huberty glanced toward his elder daughter, Zelia, as he walked toward the front door of the family home and said, "Goodbye, I won't be back."
Piece of shit.
Huberty then drove down San Ysidro Boulevard. According to eyewitnesses, he drove first toward a Big Bear supermarket and then toward a U.S. Post Office branch, before entering the parking lot of a McDonald's restaurant, approximately 200 yards from his Averill Road apartment. In his possession were a 9mm Browning HP semi-automatic pistol, a 9mm Uzi carbine, a Winchester 1200 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, a box and a cloth bag filled with hundreds of rounds of ammunition for each weapon. A total of 45 customers were present inside the restaurant. Entering the
40
restaurant
fucking
minutes later,
5?
Huberty first aimed his shotgun at a 16-year-old employee named John Arnold from a distance of approximately 15 feet. As he did so, the assistant manager, Guillermo Flores, shouted, "Hey John, that guy's going to shoot you." According to Arnold, when Huberty pulled the trigger,
Bro, who the fuck says that? Hey, that guy's gonna shoot you, bro. Who the fuck says that?
nothing happened. As Huberty inspected his gun, the manager of the restaurant, 22-year-old Neva Kane, walked toward the service counter of the restaurant in the direction of Arnold. As Arnold, believing the incident to be a distasteful joke, began to walk away from the gunman. Huberty fired his shotgun toward the ceiling before aiming the Uzi at Kane, shooting her once beneath her left eye. Kane died minutes later. Immediately after shooting Kane, Huberty fired his shotgun at Arnold, wounding the teenager in the chest and arm, before shouting a comment to the effect of, "Everybody on the ground." Huberty then referred to all present in the restaurant as dirty swine Vietnam assholes. before claiming that he had killed 1,000 and that he intended to kill 1,000 more. Upon hearing Huberty's profane rant and seeing Kane and Arnold shot, one customer, 25-year-old Victor Rivera, tried to persuade Huberty not to shoot anyone else. In response, Huberty shot Rivera 14 times, repeatedly shouting, "Shut up," as Rivera screamed in pain. As staff and customers tried to hide beneath tables and service booths, Huberty turned his attention towards 6 women and children huddled together. He first killed 19-year-old Maria Colmenero Silva with a single gunshot to the chest, then fatally shot 9-year-old Claudia Perez in the stomach, cheek, thigh, hip, leg, chest, back, armpit, and head with his Uzi. He then wounded Perez's 15-year-old sister Imelda once in the hand with the same weapon and fired upon 11-year-old Aurora Pena with his shotgun. Pena, initially wounded in the leg, had been shielded by her pregnant aunt, 18-year-old Jackie
Oh my
Reyes.
fucking
Pena
gosh.
shot Reyes 48 times with the Uzi. Beside his mother's body, 8-month-old Carlos Reyes sat up and wailed, whereupon Huberty shouted at the child, then killed the infant with a single pistol shot to the center of the back. Huberty then shot and killed a 62-year-old trucker named Lawrence Verslewis before targeting a family seated near the play area of the restaurant who had tried to shield their son and his friend beneath the tables with their bodies. 31-year-old Blythe Regan Herrera had shielded her 11-year-old son Matau beneath one booth as her husband Ronald protected Matau's friend, 12-year-old Keith Thomas, beneath a booth directly across from them. Ronald Herrera urged Thomas not to move, shielding the boy with his body. Thomas was shot in the shoulder, arm, wrist, and left elbow, but was not seriously wounded. Ronald Herrera was shot 6 times in the stomach, chest, arm, hip, shoulder, and head, but survived. His wife, Blythe, and son, Matau, were both killed by numerous gunshots to the head. Nearby, 3 women had also attempted to hide beneath a booth. 24-year-old Guadalupe Del Rio lay against a wall. She was shielded by her friends, 25-year-old Gloria Ramirez, and 31-year-old Aristelci Vuelvas Vargas. Del Rio was hit several times, but was not seriously wounded. Ramirez was unhurt, whereas Vargas received a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. She died of her wound the next day, the only person fatally wounded who lived long enough to reach a hospital. At another booth, Huberty killed 45-year-old banker Hugo Velazquez Vasquez with a single shot to the chest. The first of many calls to emergency services was made shortly after 4 p.m., notifying police of the shooting of a child who had been taken to a post office on San Ysidro Boulevard. The dispatcher mistakenly directed responding officers to another McDonald's 2 miles from the San Ysidro Boulevard restaurant. This error delayed the imposition of a lockdown by several minutes, and the only warnings to civilians.
Yo, close the door, bro. You loud, man.
What are you guys doing? You guys coming back? What's the Sephora? What's the Sephora?
Civilians walking,
coming back?
riding,
You guys
or
going
driving
back to
toward
the
the
restaurant?
restaurant were given by passers-by.
Is that sharp?
Shortly after 4 p.m., a young woman named Lydia Flores
Oh,
drove
that's
into the
you.
parking lot. Stopping at the food pickup window, Flores noticed shattered windows and the sound of gunfire before looking up, and there he was, just shooting. Flores reversed her car until she crashed into a fence. She hid in some bushes with her 2-year-old daughter until the shooting ended. At approximately 4:05 p.m., a Mexican couple, Astolfo and Maricela Felix, drove toward one of the service areas of the restaurant. Noting the shattered laminated glass, Astolfo initially assumed renovation work was in progress, and that Huberty, striding toward the car, was a repairman. Huberty fired his shotgun and Uzi at the couple and their 4-year-old daughter,
Man, this
Carlita,
is just
striking
sad, boy.
Maricela in the face, arms, and chest, blinding her in one eye and permanently rendering one hand unusable. Her baby was critically wounded in the neck, chest, and abdomen. Astolfo was wounded in the chest and head. As Astolfo and Maricela staggered away from Huberty's line of fire, Maricela gave their baby to her husband. Astolfo handed the shrieking child to a young woman named Lucia Velasco as his wife collapsed against a car. Velasco rushed the baby to a nearby hospital as her husband assisted Astolfo and Maricela into a nearby building. All 3 members of the Felix family survived. 3 11-year-old boys then rode their bikes into the west parking lot to purchase sundaes.
Wow, man.
The public yelled something unintelligible from across the street. All 3 hesitated before Huberty shot the 3 boys with his shotgun and Uzi. Joshua Coleman fell to the ground critically wounded in the back, arm, and leg. He later recalled looking toward his two friends, Omar Alonso Hernandez and David Flores Delgado, noting that Hernandez was on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds to his back and had started vomiting. Delgado had received several gunshot wounds to his head. Coleman survived. Hernandez and Delgado both died at the scene. Huberty next noticed an elderly couple, 74-year-old Miguel Victoria Ulloa and 69-year-old Aida Velasquez Victoria, walking toward the entrance. As Miguel reached to open the door for his wife, Huberty fired his shotgun, killing Ada with a gunshot to the face and wounding Miguel. An uninjured survivor, Oscar Mondragon, later reported observing Miguel cradling his wife in his arms and wiping blood from her face, shouting curses at Huberty, who then approached the doorway, swore at Miguel, then killed him with a shot to the head. Approximately 10 minutes after the first call had been
Damn, all that blood on their fucking hands,
police
man.
arrived at the correct McDonald's restaurant.
Ooh.
The first officer on the scene, Miguel Rosario, rapidly determined the location and cause of the actual disturbance and relayed this information to the San Diego Police Department as Huberty fired at Rosario's patrol car. Officers deployed immediately imposed a lockdown on an area spanning 6 blocks from the site of the shootings. The police established a command post 2 blocks from the restaurant and deployed 175 officers in numerous strategic locations. These officers were joined within the hour by several SWAT team members, who also took positions around the restaurant. As Huberty was firing rapidly and alternating between firearms, police initially were unaware how many individuals were inside the restaurant. Furthermore, because most of the restaurant's windows had been shattered by gunfire, reflections from shards of glass provided an additional difficulty for police focusing inside the restaurant. Initially, police were concerned the gunman or gunmen might be holding hostages, although one individual who had escaped from the restaurant informed police there was a single gunman present in the premises, holding no hostages and shooting any individual he encountered. At 5:05 p.m., all responding law enforcement personnel were authorized to kill the perpetrators should they obtain a clear shot. Several survivors later reported observing Huberty walk toward the service counter and adjust a portable radio, possibly to search for news reports of his shooting spree, before selecting a music station and further shooting individuals as he danced to the music. Shortly thereafter, Huberty searched the kitchen area, discovering 6 employees and shouting, "Oh, there's more! You're trying to hide from me!" In response, one of the female employees screamed in Spanish, "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" before Huberty opened fire, killing 21-year-old Paulina Lopez, 19-year-old Elsa Borboa Fierro, and 18-year-old Margarita Padilla, and critically wounding 17-year-old Albert Leos. Immediately before Huberty had begun shooting, Padilla grabbed the hand of her friend and colleague, 17-year-old Wendy Flanagan, before the two began to run. Padilla was then fatally shot. Flanagan, 4 other employees, and a female customer and her infant hid inside a basement utility room. They were later joined by Leos, who had crawled to the utility room after being shot 5 times.
This nigga just shooting people, bruh.
Huberty opened fire and repeatedly pierced the vehicle with bullets, slightly wounding one occupant. Hearing a wounded teenager, 19-year-old Jose Perez, moaning, Huberty shot him in the head. The boy slumped dead in the booth. Perez died alongside his friend and neighbor, 22-year-old Gloria Gonzalez, and a young woman named Michelle Carncross. At one point,
Bro, how many people did this man fucking kill? I know he killed more than 20 fucking people, bro.
Laura Pena, who had lain wounded beside her dead aunt, baby cousin, and 2 friends, noted a lull in the firing. Opening her eyes, she saw Huberty nearby, staring in her direction. He swore and threw a bag of French fries at Pena, then retrieved his shotgun and shot the child in the arm, neck.
Oh my fucking, this made me mad, boy.
Although she would remain hospitalized longer than any other survivor. At 5:17 p.m., Huberty walked from the service counter toward the doorway close to the drive-in window of the restaurant, affording a 27-year-old police SWAT sniper named Charles Foster, deployed to a strategic position on the roof of a post office directly opposite the restaurant, an unobstructed view of his body from the neck down through his telescopic sight. Foster fired a single round from a range of approximately 35 yards. The bullet entered Huberty's chest, severed his aorta just beneath his heart, and exited through his spine, leaving an exit wound 1 inch square and sending Huberty sprawling backwards onto the floor directly in front of the service counter, killing him almost instantly. Immediately after shooting Huberty, Foster relayed to other responding officers he had killed the perpetrator and that his focus remained on the motionless suspect. Nonetheless, as so many rounds had been expended from different firearms within the restaurant, police were not completely certain the sole perpetrator was deceased. Entering the restaurant approximately 1 minute later, a police sergeant focused his gun upon Huberty as he noted the movements of a wounded girl. When asked if the deceased male was the suspect, the girl nodded her head. The entire incident had lasted for 77 minutes, during which time Huberty fired a minimum of 257 rounds of ammunition, killing 20 people and wounding as many others, one of whom was pronounced brain dead upon arrival at hospital and died the following day. 17 of the victims were killed inside the restaurant, and 4 in the immediate vicinity. Only 10 individuals inside the restaurant were uninjured, 6 of whom remained inside the basement utility room. Several victims had tried to stanch their own wounds and/or the wounds of their companions with napkins, often in vain. Of the fatalities, 13 died from gunshot wounds to the head, 7 from gunshots to the chest, and 1 victim, 8-month-old Carlos Reyes, from a single 9mm gunshot to the back.
Bro, like 21 people? Well, and this is a grown man, bro. Like, oh my god, I can't imagine, dog. Like,
The victims, whose ages ranged from 4 months to 74 years, were predominantly, though not exclusively, of Mexican or Mexican-American ancestry, reflecting local demographics. Prior to shooting several of his victims, Huberty had shouted accusations or insults. On one occasion, he had also shouted that he himself did not deserve to live, but that he was taking care of this matter. Although Huberty had repeatedly shouted throughout his shooting spree that he had been a veteran of the Vietnam War, he had never actually served in any military branch. Initial reports issued by the San Diego Police Department following the massacre indicated that everyone injured or killed within the restaurant had been shot by Huberty in the initial minutes after he had first entered the restaurant. This claim was hotly disputed by survivors, who stated Huberty had shot both wounded and unwounded people over 40 minutes after he had first opened fire. The day after the massacre, reporters visited James Huberty's father in Mount Eaton, Ohio, to garner further information about his son. Having discussed his son's childhood and the family's religious background, Earl Huberty pointed to a painting of a lost sheep by the Jordan River before beginning to weep, informing reporters, "Yesterday was the worst day of my life. I feel so sorry for those people." In July 1986, Edna Huberty filed a lawsuit against both McDonald's and her husband's longtime former employer, Babcock and Wilcox. This civil suit, seeking $5 million in damages, asserted her husband's murder spree had been triggered by a combination of a poor diet and her husband working around highly poisonous metals without adequate protection over the course of many years. The suit specifically cited that no traces of either drugs or alcohol had been discovered in Huberty's body at his autopsy, negating any possibility of his actions being influenced by either factor, and that the alleged accrual of the high levels of lead and cadmium discovered in Huberty's body at his autopsy had most likely accumulated via an ongoing exposure to the fumes inhaled during the 13 years he had been employed as a welder, without sufficient respiratory protection, by Babcock and Wilcox, and that a combination of Huberty's exposure to these chemicals with his ingesting high levels of monosodium glutamate in the staple McDonald's food he had regularly consumed had induced delusions and an uncontrollable rage. This lawsuit was dismissed in 1987. Edna Huberty died of breast cancer in 2003.
damn, RP.
James Huberty is remembered as a man who never smiled, a man who liked guns. But mostly he will be remembered by this. He was always talking about shooting somebody, said Terry Kelly, who once worked beside him. We may never know what triggered this rage. His motive is unclear.
This is mental.
He hated his life, blamed society, abandoned his family, and was simply merciless. Set on killing children, adults, teens, and elderly. He did not discriminate, race, or gender. He was miserable and wanted the world to feel the same pain. Just a broken human who should have never been born.
Exactly. I agree with him 100% on this, bro. What the fuck? Like, you going through shit, bro. Don't take it out on other people, bro. That's not fucking. Don't ever take it out on somebody, bro. That's not gonna solve nothing, bro. Take it out on yourself, bro. You have your like only yourself to blame. Like, you had mental illness. You didn't want to get no mental help or whatever, bro. And that's your fucking demise. Like, you shot up this. You shot up the McDonald's, bro. And then you got hit with the sniper, bro. That's the consequence he had to fucking pay for all the shit he did. Now, these people lost their life over nothing, and he shot them three boys trying to get some ice cream too. Like they was on their bikes too. I just can't with people, bro. I mean, that's why if a mental like if somebody's acting crazy as fuck, like, or if they really are crazy in the head for real. I'm not saying I'm scared, but I'ma just stay away from that motherfucker, cause I don't know what the hell going through niggas' heads these days, bro. Like, especially with the mass shootings and shit. I don't know what the fuck it is. Like, I don't know what it is. Anyway, man, let me know y'all thoughts and opinions, and comment down below what y'all think of this video. Like, cause like I know all that is no excuse for what he did, his childhood. That's no excuse for what he did, but that's his fault. He didn't want to get no mental help. That's his fucking that's his business. So, man, like, only person to blame is him and himself. Anyway, man, let me know what y'all think, man. Like, share, subscribe, man. Turn on that bell, and I'm out, man. Peace.